Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I am going to be talking about Sagittarius relationships, part 2. And yes, this does apply and pertain to the Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Anyway, people, some of you may have seen the previous videos I had done on the zodiac signs and relationships. That was pretty much part 1. And that was more about specific relationships for the 12 zodiac signs based on probable signs on the house cusp in a solar or natal chart for the signs. But this is more generic. This is about how the signs are, I believe they are in relationships in general. And this one is, of course, about Sagittarius relationships and part 2. So anyway, well, first off, Sagittarius is connected with expansion, and they're often very expansive and buoyant and optimistic. They often believe in expanding their relationships. I mean, being stagnant in any area in life, and even in this department, generally will not be an option for Sagittarius. Of course, they could be very blunt and forthright, and this can come out in their relationships, and they often will speak what they feel anyway is the veritable truth. I guess they think, well, there's no sense beating around the bush, figuratively speaking, being overly tactful and diplomatic, and just they really just believe in hitting people point blank with what really needs to be said. So the thing about it is, I look at a Sagittarius, and I mean, they could even be, I mean, and you're connected with them. They could be so outspoken that they could really downright demoralize or demean the other person. I had a friend way back, may have been over 30 years ago, and he had has a Sagittarius sun. And I had inquired with him, why was our connection dissipating? I don't really see you that much anymore, and you be hanging out, with such and such people. And he said to me, he's like, well, maybe I just like them better than you. And the thing about that is, I understand. I mean, he wants to be forthright, but Sagittarius can get very blunt to the point where the remarks could be very cutting. They don't really, people have to understand, they're generally not being malicious, or they're being, at least they don't feel like they're being belligerent, but they are just very overly blunt, and that's something that you may have to accept if you're connected with them. They will often hit you with those figurative, harsh arrows of truth, and they may seldom miss their mark. I say, unless you, of course, your Sun in Sagittarius, Bill Nye on astrology, but I'm joking. But really, although in all seriousness, of course, I don't agree with his perception on astrology, but that's another thing for another time. But anyway, the thing about Sagittarius too, I mean, you look at Sagittarius, and they, if you're in like the thing about them, what you got to understand, they're not exactly known for being overly punctual and reliable. It's funny with them that they could be very blunt and forthright with what they say, but it'd just be nice to call them out once in a while. My advice to people, when they don't show up on time or something, I guess you can kind of give them a taste of their own medicine. But I mean, the thing about it is, I had a Sagittarius moon friend one time say to me, well, gee, I don't have time to be your personal chauffeur. Sometimes with Sagittarius, the only way you'll get respect from them is if you give them a taste of their own medicine, figuratively speaking. And I mean, some of them may roll with it, and others may not. They could certainly roll with jokes. I mean, Sagittarius is, of course, a sign that could be very jocular and jovial. They often have a good disposition and a very good and robust sense of humor. And the one thing about them is, I mean, they could joke with you and be jocular, but they generally, I mean, they could roll with jokes as well. And the thing about Sagittarius you got to understand in relationships as well is that they often, I mean, they like to roam and meander, and they don't like to be physically pinned down at a certain time and place. They often are very adventurous and about exploration. And they are ones that really, they have a hard time as far as stagnation goes, or being confined to some kind of indoor like routine. Sagittarius is often enamored with the outdoors, and they may often really have at least a balance between their indoor activities and outdoor activities. A sign that is more home bound, say like introverted Cancer, or Taurus, who of course could be very enamored with domestic interests and activities. These two signs may not be really that compatible for Sagittarius, as an example, because of that. And if you're water signs, can especially be very hurt by a Sagittarius's bluntness. But don't get me wrong too, that I mean, even signs that are compatible astrologically by sign, they still could have some disparities and still could be some conflict. You take like Leo, for example. I mean, the thing about Leo is that, I mean, Leo can be very domineering and really may like to be in control. And the thing about it is, Sagittarius is that meander, that free bird. So that is the one, I mean, you could see that as a negative part of a connection between Leo and Sagittarius, where even a situation like that may not always work out, because Sagittarius likes to roam, they like to meander, they like to be, as I stated before, that free bird. And if you get somebody that might be very domineering, very controlling person that wants a Sagittarius to be there constantly at a certain time, they are ones that will not really, they will not often go for that. So, and the thing too is, I want to talk about the thing about Sagittarius, which could really be beneficial and positive if you're connected with them, is that they could be very motivational, and they often can be the consummate coach, in whether it be a sports coach or a life coach or what have you. Now, I don't know if he's currently coaching any teams, but at least former NFL coach Rex Ryan, he has his son in Sagittarius, and he was the head coach of the New York Jets. And I remember one season when the Jets, I believe, just barely made the playoffs, he said that they should be the favorites to come out of the AFC, if I'm not mistaken. And the thing about it is, I'm reluctant to believe that Rex Ryan truly meant that. But I think what it is when Sagittarius energy, what it's about, they want to always at least appear positive, and really and give the impression that they are positive, because they feel that expansive optimism will rub off on others. And when you think positively, other people can pick up on that, and I think that's what often can make Sagittarius really a phenomenal coaches. And the thing too is, and Rex Ryan, again, going back to the fact him being Sun in Sagittarius, I mean, you have the bluntness and a little humor mixed in his personality. I remember they were showing something one time where there was like a punter or someone on the Jets that kicked a ball in practice, and Rex Ryan said something like, "Oh, come on now, my sister can kick higher than that," or something. So anyway, and really about in Sagittarius, what they can do too is, which could surprise a lot of people that don't know them that well, is that they could often make very bold proclamations. And you have one that comes to mind is legendary former NFL quarterback Joe Namath, who has Sagittarius rising. Many of you football fans out there may have at least heard about, even if you weren't alive at the time when he did this, that it was very historic, really very memorable, that he had made a prediction before Super Bowl III, where he predicted that his New York Jets were going to defeat the Colts in the Super Bowl. And I think the Colts were like, 18-point favorites or something. And I mean, the Jets really were looking at practically insurmountable odds in order to win the Super Bowl. But what happened was the Jets ultimately prevailed. They won the Super Bowl. And Joe Namath claims that he really believed that they were going to win the Super Bowl. And another example is Sagittarius energy being very positive and having it perhaps rub off on others is that NFL quarterback Aaron Rodgers, who has his son in Sagittarius. So some of you may remember, it wasn't last season, it was the season before, that Aaron Rodgers, I mean, the team had been struggling. I think they were 4-6, and they were floundering. The Green Bay Packers were not playing well at all. And basically made a semi-proclamation. He said he believed that the team could win their last 6 regular season games, and sure enough, they pulled it off. They won 6 consecutive games and made the postseason. And thing about with Aaron Rodgers having Taurus rising, maybe that gave him the ability to some degree to come through on what he said as well. Another thing too is, looking at Sagittarius, is that the one thing is, if you're connected with them, you're in especially a significant other situation with Sagittarius, keep in mind they may often really be enamored with foreign travel. So traveling may be a must, and it's maybe imperative that that Sagittarius will travel often to other countries. And it's something that you would have to understand if you are connected with Sagittarius. Now, the thing about Sagittarius energy too is that another thing to understand about this zodiac sign is they often, they're very, as I stated before, they can be very jocular and jovial, and they may often like to play jokes, whether it be practical jokes or what have you, on others, whether it's fake handcuffs, a whoopee cushion, a can of worms, a fake spider. They often like to have fun at others' expense, and it's generally not malicious. I had a Sagittarius sun friend, if I remember correctly, put a pair of fake handcuffs on me one time to mess with me. And those are, Sagittarius just likes to be, really likes to be humorous. They are ones, though, keep in mind, they could be, stating before about being very blunt and forthright, and they could be somewhat angered easily, given they are a fire sign. They do have a fiery temperament, but generally Sagittarius is not vindictive or vengeful, and often will not hold on to a grudge for a prolonged or protracted period. They are often very philosophical about things. They will often talk to you about regarding their philosophies, and although in a negative manifestation for Sagittarius, some can be about really, like, at least borderline indoctrination, and you just have to be careful with some Sagittarius. Sometimes they go overboard with their viewpoints, and they may act like, well, this is, even though it's not a fixed sign, they may often be like, well, this viewpoint is this, and that's it, and the heck with whatever you say. Another thing about Sagittarius too to understand now, let's say you're in, you're Sagittarius, you're in some kind of business partnership, or Sagittarius is a significant other to you, and you're in some have a joint account with him or her. A Sagittarius is not exactly known to be conservative monetarily. What I call Sagittarius sometimes even is that the reckless and near compulsive gambler syndrome. They often like to take chances. I think there's something about Sagittarius of the risk taker in them, and they often like to live life on the edge, and that could apply to how they are monetarily as well. Sagittarius could actually be very proficient in gambling because they can be prophetic, I believe, and visionary, but at the same time, if you gamble enough at some point, you may lose a good amount. And Sagittarius is really one that really needs to be prudent if they are in a situation where there is a joint financial connection or situation. So, they are not ones to be overly prudent and cautious regarding things of a monetary nature. And the thing about, I mean, Sagittarius is really what they are about is the truth, and really sometimes what they think is the veritable truth, and people to be honest with them. And it's funny, there was one time, if I remember correctly, former NBA player Jason Kidd, he has a Sagittarius Ascendant, and sports writer, columnist Bob Ryan had said something, I think, about Jason Kidd's wife on something. I don't know if it was on TV or if it was in a write-up somewhere, something about, well, I ought to smack her or something like that. And Bob Ryan ultimately he apologized to Jason Kidd, but Jason Kidd said something like, well, he don't need to apologize to me, he needs to apologize to my wife. And the thing is, Jason Kidd having Sagittarius Ascendant and a Aries Sun, he is obviously not one to mince words, but I think I'm sure he was accepting of the apology, assuming Bob Ryan did apologize to his wife, as long as it's ingenuous. And Sagittarius, as I stated before, if you're connected with them, you generally don't have to worry about them being overly vengeful or vindictive. And I mean, if somebody comes to them and they acknowledge that they're wrong, they often will be forgiven, and if they believe that the apology was contrite and ingenuous. So also, too, I mean, Sagittarius, as far as what they may like to do as far as things of enjoyment, well, actually, amusement and enjoyment places, amusement parks, things connected with exploration, adventure, the outdoors, they are often enamored with. They might like often sports-minded, whether it's going to a football, baseball, basketball game or what have you, or actually playing it. They may like to play activities outdoors, whether it might be lawn darts or just something outdoorsy. And I mean, they could play, I mean, sports games like Stratomatic baseball. Those are, I mean, they are really in carnivals. They may like things that are of any kind of that have the strong enjoyment aspect or element to them. And given that Sagittarius can be that incorrigible optimist, when you're connected with them, they could even inspire the most pessimistic and negative person there. And they often they may want to extricate themselves from someone that is overly pessimistic or negative, because this could be very detrimental to their mental health. I mean, more so than perhaps the other signs, because Sagittarius is so focused on being optimistic and expansive and positive. So, and really, Sagittarius, if you are connected with one, may be up for philosophical debate every now and then. I thought it was interesting, there was a former MLB, Major League Baseball player, Ernie Banks. He had that famous quote. He said, "Let's play two." He has Sagittarius Ascendant. And it wouldn't surprise me if he would have liked to have played a lot more double headers than he actually did. I think this really exemplifies the expansive, upbeat nature of the zodiac sign. So, but I mean, if you joke with Sagittarius, I mean, hey, they could often laugh it off with that proverbial smile on the face, and they are just ones that really are about amusement and fun. I had a friend one time, Sagittarius Moon. He had called me one time, played a practical joke on me, and I mean, he pretended like he wanted to order a pizza, large pepperoni pizza, and like the first two times or whatever, I said, this is not a pizzeria, I'm sorry, I can't take your order. And then like the third time he called, he was so persistent with this, I finally took the order. And I said, well, I said, I'll have it ready, whatever, such and such time. And then he said, with sausage. I said, okay, yeah, I'll put sausage on it. I'll have it ready for you. And then that was it. But I mean, Sagittarius are just hams. They are ones that love to joke with you, and you gotta have, I mean, to be around Sagittarius, you gotta have a very strong, robust sense of humor, so to speak. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for Sagittarius Relationships Part 2. Stay tuned next time, where I'll be talking about Capricorn Relationships Part 2. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.